Welcome to a new live session of Seibert Media. I have two guests. From K15T, we're going to be talking about scroll documents today, a new addition to the infamous set of apps of K15T. And you're laughing as if I was making a joke, but actually you're one of the most successful app vendors out there. So how about you introduce us to yourself in person and also to your new app edition, really quick.
Sure. So I'm Shannon Meehan. I work in app marketing for K15T. And as Martin just said, we have a very large library of apps. Lately, I've been focused very much on the Scroll Documents app, sort of our newest addition. I also look after the Scroll exporters. Maybe you've heard of them: Scroll Word Exporter, Scroll PDF Exporter, and then a number of other exporter apps on the marketplace. And I'm joined by my colleague, Dash.
Yeah, so hi, my name is Dash, and I'm the product manager for Scroll Documents. Quite excited to share this app with everybody here on this webinar. And looking forward to the presentation and any of those curveballs that we might receive from you.
You're already expecting me to ask the silly questions. Cool. K15T has been, like, in my head, like, the image of your company is that you own that document management space in Confluence. That's been something that you've been very vocal about in the past years. And this Scroll Documents now seems to be a culmination of all of what you've learned. That's at least what my first impression was. Can you second that, or is that an exaggeration, or how would you pitch that?
No, I think that's a pretty good way of putting it. Since the beginning of K15T, we've really tried to focus on, obviously, document management, like you said, Martin, but also documentation teams. So our very early apps were mostly in the export space, so with the Scroll exporter, but then we also started getting into teams who started to use Confluence specifically to manage documentation, mostly for their products. And that was where Scroll Versions was born. And so we started getting into this versioning space and finding creative ways for people to take Confluence and not just use it as a wiki as it started with, but being able to really manage content and documents and documentation in a sophisticated way. So those early apps taught us a lot about what was needed in that market. Mostly in the document management space, it was that people who were doing things in Confluence weren't doing them exclusively in Confluence. So there was a stage for a lot of companies where they needed to get that content out of Confluence, and in a way that they could continue to have it in their company brand. They needed it in specific formats, and they needed to be able to then go and take the content and maybe send it out to their customers, and make it available to folks outside of their Confluence sphere. So that's where a lot of these apps sort of plug in and offer a lot of capabilities for you to be more flexible with not only writing the content in Confluence, but then getting it out in some way.
And that's what you still keep doing, right? You're supporting people to get the content out in different formats and work with it there as well. But the creation is, like, more streamlined in your solution now. Why, as a customer, let's assume those people out there watching this video, they do know a little bit about Confluence. Can you give us, like, your 30-second pitch on, if they don't use Confluence, why Confluence is the place? Like, in your marketing video, you're saying, I think it's literally, you're saying now your content is where it should be in Confluence, which is kind of like a bold statement, because most people still think in Microsoft Word, or if they are a little bit more pragmatic or progressive, they may do it in Google Docs.
Right.
But, like, you saying that content should be created in Confluence is already a bold statement. Maybe you could enlighten us in 30 seconds why Confluence is so cool. And then, as we assume that most people know that already, why isn't that sufficient? There's versions already in Confluence pages. Why should I care about Scroll Documents?
No, that's a good question, and I think it's very telling of K15T. So we do almost everything in Confluence. I think that's safe to say. So we think about Confluence not just as a wiki or a place to write content. It really is the single source of truth for everything that is sort of written or documented or needs to be shared or communicated is done in Confluence. And we see that as a really powerful part of the tool when it starts to get into an organization. So if you're just starting to get to use Confluence, maybe you have a use case, maybe you're doing some internal documentation, we really encourage people to start doing more, mostly because of the collaborative nature of the tool. So it's really easy to have conversations on a page, to create content really quickly, to move it around, to have this really flexible platform where everything is documented and everything is available all in one place. So if you're doing this in Microsoft Word, you run into some issues with compatibility or things being stuck in these silos. Maybe things are being hidden in email chains, or you're using file shares, and there's sort of this distribution of knowledge in the company. And once you've got Confluence sort of adopted by everyone, and we really push that with a lot of our customers, is once people really start adopting it, you can see this sort of infinite growth with how people can use Confluence, and then they get into a space where they can start to do things like you said with versioning. You can do that in Confluence, but if you're starting to get a bit more sophisticated where you're either managing sort of larger documentation for products or you're managing multiple versions of your documents, you run into some barriers where versioning, for example, only exists on the page level. And it's not as flexible with sort of when you want to define versions or define milestones, where we help teams do that. So with scroll versions, we do that at the space level. With scroll documents, we're introducing it at the page tree level. So sort of taking the foundation of Confluence, and with these apps, we're building on it for when you get to a stage where you need to do that across the organization.
Yeah, cool. The majority of your customers, are they trying to get away from all the other apps that are so dispersed and difficult to manage altogether? Or are they already in Confluence and struggle by the limitation of the software and need your solution to do that? What's the majority? Is it more like existing Confluence users lusting for the features, or people who now see your solution as the option to really fully adopt Confluence?
Good question.
I think I'll try to take that on. So basically, as you mentioned, these are the two broader categories of people. So we already have a lot of users from our other apps who have been using Confluence in a way, who, if adopt scroll documents, would gain benefits from all the features that it has to provide. But when we started with this app, I think Shannon and I were some of the first people who pitched this idea of how we want or in which direction we want scroll documents to be. And we both were coming from a place where when we joined K15T, the whole Confluence environment was absolutely new for us. And then getting onboarded, getting started to use Confluence was sort of a steep learning curve. Because we already had a lot of content there, and finding stuff and getting started was really difficult. So we were coming from that place. And when we started designing this app or thinking about it, one of our primary motivations was to make it in a way that people who are new to Confluence or are moving from these kind of environments, so like Google Docs, shared drives and stuff, those people would find it easy to onboard so that they find a familiar environment. So we wanted to make it more visual, more sort of based on similar experience that they would have in these apps, so that getting onboarded into Confluence becomes super fast. So to answer your questions, our target is definitely both these groups. We would love that our existing customers take care of this, and then we would love that we have all these new users trying using scroll documents sort of as a stepping stone to get onboarded into Confluence.
One of the most interesting things about these webinars is seeing the software. Before we get there, I would want to talk a little bit about use cases. Like we've been talking about feature level things like with scroll versions, I can change my space to become a version space. And now with scroll documents, I can use page trees and version those. And I assume that doesn't mean anything to a lot of our customers. Can we talk a little bit about what real world problems people have that you're solving with this solution?
Yeah, good good intro. So I guess the easiest one to start with is product documentation. We're pretty confident people are already using Confluence for that. Obviously, our scroll versions customers are sort of proof of that. And the big thing for the difference between scroll versions and scroll documents is that, like you said, you can do versioning on a page or on a space level. And then with scroll documents, it's a bit more of a lightweight versioning approach, where you're only really committed to the versioning at the page tree level. And you're not dedicating these spaces to entirely to your version documentation. Versions, of course, has its own benefits as well. You can do versioning, you can do variants. It's really sort of this powerful tool. And with documents, with the lightweight approach, you really can just define this at the page tree level, manage even multiple documentation or multiple documentations in the same space for different products, say. So it's a bit, I guess the easy way to put that is that's the lightweight approach.
Let's stay with product documentation right now. And let's assume you're a customer and you're somewhere in products. Like you're not doing services, you're doing products right now. You're creating a washing machine or a dishwasher or a hammer or a chainsaw. All of these things, they can be dangerous, they can be difficult to steer. So you're creating a handbook. You're creating a handbook for your people so that they can understand what this dishwasher has when it doesn't work, or how to use it better, more eco-friendly or whatever. So this handbook, you have to write somewhere. And maybe yesterday you were doing that in Microsoft Word. And if you did, you know how much of a torture this is. And now you've understood, oh, cool, a wiki like Confluence can do this job better. And then you found out, oh, for actually delivering this handbook, Confluence doesn't do the job. Then you have come to K15T and seen that they can actually do this handbook for you. And now you've adopted that more widely for your quality management handbook as well, for processes and other stuff that you may print or may not print, things that you may export to a PDF file or a Word file and then beautify it with your agency or whatever. And my understanding is now that you've understood that you can do this with your flagship product dishwasher, you want to do this way more often. And that's where scroll documents comes in and be lightweight, easier to package and so on. That's that would be my pitch, or at least how I understood it.
No, it's pretty good representation. I mean, the other good thing about it is that you have some flexibility with the publishing side of things as well. So if you're a team who, let's say you have version 1 of your handbook, that you could have that one available to your readers. And in the background, you can create your second version, make it or restrict it to your readers, write all of the new documentation. And when it's ready to go live, you can just publish that new version to another space, one that's available to your readers.
Also, for example, like in case of this little handbook, instead of putting everything on a single page, because Scroll Documents gives you these tools to manage multiple pages, you have the flexibility to break down the topics into different pages, assign these different pages to sort of different departments, maybe one to the safety regulation department, one to the security, one for the hardware, and they sort of update their own section of the document, and they can publish it, and then you can save versions, and you can track the sort of growth or the advancement of the document as time passes.
Yeah, cool. Also, if you're not in products right now and you're doing services, let's assume the world was only products and services. And if you're the other part, you're doing services, I think that this kind of solution, it may not be as easy to adopt, but it's even more important because doing services is a very complex thing. Customers need a lot of trust to hire you. They don't understand what they're actually buying. They only see the result or the pain that they have, and they want to go away, and they don't know how. and now your service is kind of the magic potion that will make this go away. While the dishwasher is something that is pretty simple in the utility of the customer, a service is not. A service is almost always complex. So having a documentation, for example, pre-sales, giving the customer, look, this is what you should read to gain this trust that we can actually fulfill this service. Oh, customer, thank you so much for your order. This is a document that can accompany like our project now, so that you know what we're doing and how this magic is actually working. Oh, Mr. Customer, I just delivered this service to you. Here's your invoice. Please pay. But as well, like, here are your options to induce new services with us, top on that, and so on. Like, documentation for services, in my opinion, is even, it's not as widespread, but it's even more important because you're selling such a complex kind of product. Okay, with that in mind, let's look at software.
Excellent.
Perfect. All right, I will quickly share my screen here. Right. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, all good.
Perfect. All right, so if this is our everyday Confluence space, you would usually manage all your content on pages. As you can see, there are different pages here, and then organize these pages into page trees. And as your content grows, you would sort of logically arrange them in this sort of structure where there is a top level page, which can be sort of synonymous to a folder in the file system. And then these sort of topics have their subtopics, and then subtopics have chapters. So this is like in a way where your content starts growing and you start managing your documents in Confluence. For example, let's say the scroll documents onboarding is a document that you have in your Confluence space, and then you can see that there is a possibility that as your space grows, as your content grows, this particular document might just get lost somewhere in this page tree, and it's not always intuitive. I mean, you can always use search to find that document, but then once you get into Confluence Search, you are searching for pages. But here, we look at this as the entire thing as one document, and we're not concerned about just single page. So as an end user, I would like to read this, or I would like to consume this whole content as a single unit of content, as you would do on a Word file or a PDF file. So that was sort of the first challenge that we wanted to solve. And that's where scroll document comes in. So if this were my document and these were my sub pages or categories or chapters, as you may say, you can now manage this entire thing as a single unit of content. And to do that, once you've installed scroll documents, you will see a little document icon on top of all the pages in Confluence. So you just go here, you go to the top level page of that document, click on that little document icon there. Say continue that you want to manage this page and all of its children as a document. Then you get an opportunity to sort of provide a document title, so some metadata, like a document title. Now, this can be same as the title of the top level page, or you have the flexibility to change it to anything. And then you can actually, unlike pages, you can have multiple documents with the same title within your space. So you get sort of that flexibility as well. Then you get to add some labels, same as Confluence labels. They help you categorize these documents. Now, these labels are not being applied to a certain page, but they would be applied to your entire document. So these are sort of categories that you can add to classify this document. So let's say we say this is a handbook, and then you get to add a little summary. Now, this summary would help your readers to sort of quickly get an idea of what the document is. It could be your readers, end users, or even other people who are collaborating on the document. They would see this bit of information in what I'm going to show you next in the document overview. It just makes it easier for people to quickly get an idea about what the document is. Click on Create. And once that is done successfully, the document will then be added to what we call the documents overview. And as you can see, so this is a documents overview. So every space comes with its own document overview, where you will basically see all of the documents that you create within that space. It has a bunch of elements. To start with, as you can see, once you created that document, it gets added here, gets highlighted. So you can click on every document to sort of expand this details view. And the motivation behind this was to make accessibility faster and familiar. So the UI you would see is familiar to people who are coming from other document management tools. You have this little card view, which makes it more visual and easy to browse through all your documents. You can set your own cover images. And with this details view, we wanted to make all of the important information available as within context and with as much ease as possible. So here you would see the document title, the summary that you had added, and on the right-hand side, you have certain other metadata like the status of the document. We're going to talk more about it, and I'm going to show you how you can change that in a bit. You see how many versions of this document are there, and you can navigate to that once you have more than one version of it. And then you get all the information about creators, modifiers, dates, contributors, and all the labels. And you can also add and edit, remove labels from here as well.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah, sure.
I didn't understand in the process, how does Scroll Documents know which pages are part of this document? Like, we only created this one. Do you take all the child pages automatically, or is there a dialogue for that I didn't see?
Yes, so that is basically the concept of a document. So if you have a single page or a set of pages which are related to each other by a page tree, so it takes all of that as a single document.
Okay, so it's the full page tree that
Full
will
page
become
tree. So if
part
you have
of the document.
Yep. So if you have a single page that you have converted into a document, and in the future you add more subpages to that, all those pages will automatically be picked up as part of the document.
Okay, but then I also have to make sure that I don't have pages that I don't want to be included in as part of the tree.
Right.
Yes, and if you want to sort of hide that information, if you don't have a way around it, you can always restrict those pages on Confluence. In Confluence, you can view restrict those pages, and they would not appear anywhere within your document or anywhere.
Okay, yeah, I understand that.
So Pro Document sort of respects all the permissions and restrictions of Confluence.
Okay, this also means that people can kind of sneak in pages into my page tree, and this way also my document, that I may want to prevent.
Yes, so they can do that, but there are. So we are currently working on different concepts and ideas where we can sort of prevent that and maybe give the admins an option of avoiding situations like that.
But yeah, at the moment we haven't restricted that. If you had somebody who went and moved a page into that page tree, it would be picked up by the document itself.
Yeah, but like as professionals in Confluence, we all know that Confluence and other apps do help us tremendously in controlling that if we wanted to do so. So there's subscriptions that I could use that will send me an email. There's even workflows that would help me restrict people from just adding pages that I didn't approve and so on. So it's not a real problem, actually.
True.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So back to the documents overview. So this is the details view, and there are certain other elements here. So as and when your content grows, you add more documents here. You can make use of all these actions in the toolbar here. So you can filter documents by title, or you can choose to filter them by statuses. So if you want to look at all the documents that are under review right now, you can select that, and you get all of that information here. You can choose to filter documents by a certain creator if you want to follow the documents by a certain individual in your organization, or you also have the flexibility to filter them out by labels or categories, if you may. Then you have three options to sort this information. You can sort them by title. If you want to find all the recently created documents, you can do that as well. And you also have the option to sort them by recently modified, so you know which documents were updated recently. And along with this card view, you will also have a list view if that's your preference. List view has certain advantages that you can see some of these metadata in front of you right away. So this is sort of a matter of preference, what you want to do. But otherwise, everything else remains same. You can click on these rows to expand the details view and get more information about the documents. There's one more thing that you can do from this documents overview is you can create new documents. So we provide 3 options right now. So if you are trying out Scroll Documents, you are new to it, we provide sort of an onboarding document template. You can choose that. And once you create that, everything is pre-populated. So this document actually creates multiple pages. So it creates a multi-page document, and it has content about how you can get started with documents. So we wanted to sort of use, OK, there is some problem here. You can use sort of Scroll Documents to get started with Scroll Documents. And if you open this, you will see that it has all the instructions that you need to get started with Scroll Documents. So that is one of the options that you can create. Second is a blank document. So what this basically does is it creates a new page and then marks it as a document. And then you can add content to that page, and you can add child pages, and those child pages will automatically become part of the document. Or else, there is a third option. You can create documents from your existing pages, which basically we already did. Here, you can choose a root page, for example, development, and you can convert that into a document. So it would convert that page and all of its children and combine that as a single document. So you have these 3 options to create documents from the documents overview. All right, so that was all about the documents overview. Let's move on to the second part of the app, which we call the viewer. So this is the documents viewer. And the first thing you will notice that it's slightly different from the regular page view of Confluence. We have put together this sort of view to give the users the context of a document. So on the left-hand side, you will see that instead of a page tree, now you have a document outline, which not only gives you all the pages that are part of the document, but also sort of all the headings that are part of that document. So now you have sort of a table of content, sticky table of content on the left, which gives you more visibility into your content. So as a reader or even as a contributor, you always have that on the side for easy access. And it's just not there for show. It's also quite interactive. So you can navigate to a certain section of the document by just clicking through them. Or if you are scrolling through the document, the table of content or the document outline sort of follows your position so that it gives a better reading experience. Then you also have some metadata here as well. So you get the title of the document, you get the status of the document, and when the document was last modified and by whom. And when I say when the document was last modified, it takes into account all of the pages that were part of the document. So it's not talking about a single page, but if any of the pages in the document was modified, you will get that as the last modification date and modifier here. Then from a reader's perspective, we also ship with 2 different view modes. So the first one, as you can see, that it's quite different from the regular Confluence server view, is that you have this narrow, centrally aligned content, which makes it easier to read it. Both
kind of like it is in cloud, right?
Exactly. So that it just makes it easier to read on even larger screens. But if you have wider content or you just prefer the default view, you can change it back to full width view, and it remembers your preference. All right, let's go back to the comfort view. Then you can also share this document with anybody in your organization. All you have to do is just go here, copy this link, and share it. And anybody who clicks on this link will be taken to this viewer where they can see the entire document without having to interact with any of the other pages or any of the usual Confluence elements. So they're always in this document context. All right. Then, as a contributor, you also get a lot of powerful tools that are built into the document viewer. The first one is you can actually edit your documents right from here. So as I said, that the document comprises of all the pages that are part of that page tree. So then these individual pages sort of, in a way, become sections of that document. So let's say you wanted to edit this particular section of the document. So all you have to do is click on this little edit button here. Takes you to the Confluence editor. Everything remains same. And here you can add or modify content. And once you say update, it will take you back into the document viewer. So this feature is only available on server. But on cloud, you have the same experience, except that once you have updated content in the editor, it does not navigate you back into the viewer, but to the actual Confluence page. And from there, you can always navigate back to the viewer.
How painful was the implementation in cloud? Or was it more that the server implementation was painful?
In fact, it wasn't. I mean, cloud, there were certain limitations that we had to navigate around. But from day one, we actually started developing it simultaneously. There were certain services that we had to develop ourselves because of the lack of REST services. But otherwise, it wasn't as painful as we would have expected it to be.
And it sounds like no matter if I'm on Confluence Cloud or Confluence Server, I can use your app on both deployment models, correct?
Yeah, it looks exactly the same, behaves exactly the same. So there is no difference at all, except for this little feature of navigating from the editor back into the viewer. But everything else is the same.
Cool.
All right. So we saw that you can edit here. The next thing that you might want to do, for example, is let's say you want to change the status of this document. So now you are editing it. It's in progress. You have done some editing. You want to change it to a different status. So scroll document ships with these 3 default statuses to sort of have a very minimal, basic workflow that if you want to have it in your organization or in your team, so you can change it to under review, save it, and then you can share this document with your colleagues who can then provide their feedback. You can make adjustments. You can edit the document, and then once you're done with that, once you're happy, you can change it to approved, and then everybody sees that this document is in the approved state. So no matter who opens this document, they can always see that this is the up-to-date version of the document. Now that you've done that, maybe you would like to sort of save a snapshot of this document and you continue working on this. So if this is a handbook, maybe I would like to start working on the new version of the handbook. So before doing that, what I would do is I'll save a snapshot of this current version. For that, what you can do is just go to the More menu, click on Save a Version. And this is where some of the other magic of scroll document happens. So now you have the power and the flexibility to create versions on demand, and not only do that, but also have the power to sort of add these metadata that would help you identify these versions later on. So you get to choose what version, what you want to call this version. You also get to choose your own versioning workflow, for example. So you have the flexibility to either go the snapshot way, so you keep working on a single copy, and then after you have made all the changes and you have approved the changes, you save a snapshot. Or you can also choose to create a version of any pre-existing version. So that way you are sort of creating branches of your document. So depending on how you want to use it, how your team wants to use it, you have the flexibility of going either ways. Considering this is our first version, let's go the snapshot way. So let's just base this version on the current version. You can give a comment which will be visible to anyone who is dealing with this. So let's say original content, and click on Save. And once you do that, it saves a version of that document. So a version of the document would basically be the structure of that page tree, as well as all of the content at that point in time.
Can I ask maybe it's a very deep question, but exactly about this versioning. We had a bigger and kind of, let's say, progressive customer who was using scroll versions. And their problem was that maybe we didn't understand that correctly. I may have been too shallow and didn't know how that ended. But the way they were using that normally was they were preparing a version like internally, and then they would kind of publish this new version, this new dishwasher, to a certain space where everyone could see it.
Right.
But before that, they would kind of prepare that version in their dark mode in their own department.
Yeah.
And now they had a use case where they wanted to do it the other way around. So they wanted to have the current version always be available, and then save away kind of the versions of, oh, this was, by the way, dishwasher, that, or actually it was about an employee handbook, that. And I just saw in your scroll documents that you can base a version on an older version, which is exactly that use case, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if any one of you watching this video had this question, but we were talking about this like for ages, and Yeah, cool. Cool that this is possible. And is this possible in scroll versions as well?
Yes.
Yes, it is possible. And I think scroll version gives you even more flexibility and more power in doing this, because that's sort of was the idea behind it. So you have option of branching stuff away from the current version. You can create variants of your document so that you can share content between different versions. And then you also have the option of merging changes and stuff. So it's sort of more sophisticated in that way.
Okay, cool. I'm going to make a mark at this part of the video later and send it to the team.
Great.
Perfect. All right. So we saved a version, and all the versions actually get added to this version history, which is available to you at any point in time in the left navigation bar. So again, one of our core motivations was to keep people in context and not let you just throw around into different places within the Confluence. Everything as is in your fingertips. So just open up the version history, and if you click through different versions, they all load up here, so you can easily go through each of these changes. And again, if you are on a particular version, you will see that it reflects what version you are in, when was that version modified, and everything. And you also sort of, every version in document can be sort of on a conceptual level be sort of imagined as an independent document in itself. So everything you can do on a document level, you can also do for a version. For example, you can edit the metadata of a version here. So you can change the version title and the comment here. You can share this particular version. So if you're sharing this link from here, people will be redirected to the viewer, but it will open up the particular version that you shared. Also, you can export a particular version. You can create copies of a version. You can delete a specific version. You can do all of that on a version level as well.
And this is sort of where that comes in, that you can also create a version of this version, because in itself it's its own document. So at any point you could go back and create another version based on version 1, even if you're at version 7 for your current.
Yeah. Or you can also sort of use this feature if you have sort of a draft space and you have a public space. Once you have created a version or you have approved a certain version, you can copy over that particular version to that public space, and that will be available to all your end users who are looking for that washing machine.
Okay, cool. About the washing machine, I do at some point have to give away stuff to people who do not have access to my internal Confluence system.
Right.
You do have export features for that. Could you introduce us real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's, before you get started, I think it's important to know that so what we're offering with this product is not necessarily the scroll exporters out of the box. So we just have an integration, the moment, a pretty tight integration with Scroll PDF and Scroll Word Exporter. So you can still export your documents or your pages at the page tree level with like the native Confluence exporter.
Okay.
But if you want the features that come standard with Scroll PDF and Scroll Word Exporter, or if you've got them already installed in your instance, then this process is just a lot more seamless. And Dash can show you sort of how that works.
This answers a couple of questions that I had, like how does that interact with the existing product? So Scroll Documents hooks into the features of Scroll PDF Exporter and Scroll Doc Exporter.
Exactly.
Yeah. So instead of sort of replacing all of the apps with a single app, we're sort of building our own Avengers team.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I was under the impression that you maybe have bundled that into that or something. Okay, but that makes sense.
Yeah. So as Shannon mentioned, if you already have PDF and Word Exporter, you have a seamless integration. So you just have to go to the More menu, click on Export to PDF. It fires up the PDF Exporter interface. So if you're already used to it, it'll have the same interface. You can choose all of your templates.
And if you're not familiar with our exporter apps, maybe it's also just helpful to say, so the difference with these apps is that you can create as many templates as you want, and you can style them in its entirety. So you can define, different heading styles, table styles, font styles. You can add cover pages. You can add document metadata so that on the export, you can have it say who exported it, on what date. You can have all of this custom metadata just completely embedded in the export. And that's where it sort of stands apart from the native exporters, that if you're really looking to customize every aspect of your PDF or your Word document, these are where these apps come in.
It's probably kind of the first things that I made videos with and got in contact with K15T when we adopted Confluence. Like all of our customers were using for, I don't give a damn about this shit, give me a document. And then we exported to Word, for example, and prettified it in Word later. And I was really ecstatic when I found out that you had this technology that would make my Confluence page live in a Word file without me having to live too long in Microsoft Word. But that's a different topic. Cool. Is there something that we still need to cover for the feature set of Scroll documents?
Yeah, just a couple of them, I guess.
Yeah, just a couple of things. I mean, in particular, maybe the read request.
Well, let me finish that. Like, you're exporting that to a PDF file.
Yeah.
It's your employee handbook, and then
document onboarding
employee, and he'll then be able to read what will be the first steps when he starts and kicks off in your company.
Yeah.
And that's, for example, a use case that we have a lot in our company, where we try to prepare people on how is the first day going to be and so on.
Yep. Yeah, maybe there's just one small feature we could just run through really quickly, and it's going to be available soon.
Yeah.
Is read requests. So let's say you have a document that you need somebody in your organization to read. You have a few options for sharing information in Confluence. You can share a page. You can mention them in a comment or in an inline comment. But if you really need to keep track of when people are reading your documents, and you need them to be reading multiple pages at once, we have also built a feature that lets you do that.
Yeah, and I can quickly show you sort of on a conceptual level. I don't have a live demo for that. So for example, if once this feature is rolled out, can you see my screen?
Yeah, looks like the real thing.
Perfect. All right, so you would have an option here on a document level. So if you go to the More menu, you can create a read request as an admin. Once you do that, you can actually create a read request for any version of that document that you choose. So you can do it for your current version or any of the other versions that you have created. So you can pick any of those versions here. You can add a little message, which will be sent out to your audience in an email. You can set a deadline for this read request, but this is not compulsory. And then you can add individual people or groups here. Once you create it, a notification will be sent out, an email notification will be sent out to all those people who were added to that request. And within that email, they would have a link which would take them right into the document viewer, and they would see this little read request notification on the top, which would give them an information about who has sent the request, when is the deadline, if there were any messages that were being sent, and they will have the option to actually confirm explicitly that they have read this. So they can read it, click on this little checkbox, say confirm, and then this confirmation is saved. Then as an admin, you can actually access all of those confirmations from the read request overview, which is available to you in the documents overview. So there'll be a little item on the top called read request. You click on it, you will be taken to the read request overview, where you can see all of the read requests you have created so far within that particular space, for which document, which version, who created it, if there is a deadline, and the status of that request. So we can see that we had already created a couple of them which are closed, and this is the active one. And if I want, yeah.
And that's something that you're working on right now, right?
We have, it is almost close to release. We're just in the testing mode right now, and if everything goes fine, it should be out in the marketplace in a couple of weeks.
So if people love that specific feature or scroll documents altogether, how will they follow you? How do they get updates from K15T?
So obviously our website is a great source of information. We also have a newsletter that we send out, I guess, every other month. If you're interested in scroll documents in particular, we've got a landing page up right now. We're also happy to share our information. If you've got specific questions, it's always easy to get us at hello@k15t.com. yeah, I guess that's probably the easiest way.
Or you can
like the email address. Can you stop sharing your screen so that we can see you for the end of the video as well?
Yeah.
And obviously, as a customer, you can always contact Seibert Media. We'll try to help you and find out how and if this is the best app for your use case. Thank you so much for introducing us to this new solution of yours. What's the perception so far? What do customers say? What do they love about it? What do they hate about it? What can you tell us?
So we've gotten lots of feedback so far. Many feature requests even. I think people are very excited about the flexibility of it, and I think people are also very, very excited about the UI, which we're happy about because we wanted to make this as user-friendly as possible. And as far as direction, we're trying to push it into a space where we can start to tackle more of these document control environments and what they need in order to use Confluence. So more sophisticated workflows, things like restrictions on documents. You brought up this issue of somebody being able to then go and just add a page to a document on their own, sort of tackling these challenges where people want to have more control over those things. Being able to see sort of when a document has moved through a transition state, more custom statuses like you saw sort of with the workflows there. Yeah, what else?
Yeah, also while doing that, not forgetting all those new teams and companies who are trying to move to Confluence and just make life easier for them to get onboarded.
Mm-hmm. Some of the things that you've mentioned and shown, like workflows and reconfirmation, there's already solutions out there in the Confluence ecosystem.
Yeah.
Do you fear that those providers will hate you for like kind of duplicating their features? Is it an inevitable thing to like build this in your own solution if you want to have it streamlined and a good usability? Or did you just like want to suck up their market share? How did that appear, and how do you look at that?
No, it's a good question, and you're right. There are sort of individual solutions out there for some of the aspects that we're offering. What we're trying to do in general is have sort of an all-encompassing solution that you don't have to sort of plug and play with a ton of different things. But obviously, I think that the big folks that you might be thinking of when it comes to workflows are Kamala. We have been in talks with them because obviously we know that there are a lot of organizations out there who love Kamala and who need it as a part of their workflow in Confluence. So we have been in discussions with potentially getting an integration at some point because their workflow solutions are really sophisticated and something we could definitely benefit from. But in the meantime, I mean, I think there's a lot to offer with this product in the sense that, yes, the read requests are great. It's sort of a nice feature that sits on top of documents, but it's also part of this whole idea that you're not just managing an individual sort of read request in Confluence. You want to really manage a document and everything that goes along with it. So even including the exports and the status labels and even the metadata that you might need to add to a document to make it more findable, more readable, more accessible to other people in the organization. So really thinking about it as an all-encompassing solution here.
Yeah, we're hitting these problems every now and then ourselves when we're building this linchpin internet solution where we think, oh, this should be way more streamlined. This should be way more integrated into what we're doing. So now we're trying to either like use this, what is already there, or build something new that's more streamlined. And in most cases, it's not as powerful. It's a difficult question, but probably not as important for most of the customers out there. Thank you so much, you two, for the time, for the introduction. If you found that interesting, please like the video, please comment, please reach out to K15T, and check out their marketplace app. Is it two different things? That probably it's one app on the marketplace for cloud and server, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah. And I'm searching for scroll documents. And also, like as a small summary from my side, this is in my opinion, pretty unique to what you can do with Confluence. So there are side things that could be replaced by Compiler workflows or whatever. And also for reconfirmations, there are apps out there. But if you want to combine a page tree into what K15T calls a document, the only thing that I know is there are other solutions out there that can package it and export it. But there is no way of making this Google Drive style overview and the management and the versioning and the integration to exports and so on. That's pretty unique. And if you're very deep into documentation, technical documentation, products, maybe trying to productize your services, that's definitely something that you should check out. Thank you, Shannon and Dash, for being with me and showing us. And I'm looking forward to redoing that as your product grows.
Yeah, we'd love to join you again. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.